Hi everyone. Welcome to the Fragility Forum 2022 podcast series produced by the Fragility, Conflict and Violence Group of the World Bank Group. I am Caroline Vagneron, coordinator of the Fragility Forum. As complexity and uncertainty become the new normal, with new and intensifying crises posing new challenges, this podcast series explores how the international community can best support countries affected by fragility, conflict and violence in a fast-changing global landscape.
Hi, my name is Micol Pistelli and I am a Senior Financial Inclusion Coordinator from UNHCR. In this episode, we will be speaking about blended finance interventions, bringing together public and private sector funding to support micro-entrepreneurs in displacement settings. In particular, we will be talking about a facility established by the Swedish Development Agency, SIDA, UNHCR, and Grameen Agricole Foundation in Uganda, a country which hosts over 1.5 million refugees and asylum seekers, the highest refugee population in sub-Saharan Africa. I am joined by two speakers, Philippe Guichandut, Head of Inclusive Finance Development at the Grameen Agricole Foundation, and Mercy Sunday Ainomugisha, CEO of the microfinance institution Vision Fund Uganda. Hi to you both and welcome.
Hello, Philippe speaking.
Hi. So Philippe, let me start by asking you, as a microfinance investor, what brought your organization to engage with refugee entrepreneurs in Uganda?
Well, I would say it was both the social mission of the foundation as well as the potential business case of serving refugees who, I would say, are a largely underserved market by the financial sector. In fact, the foundation has been investing in more than 100 organizations worldwide with a focus on Africa since our inception in 2008. And however, it's only until 2020, that is when our refugees program started, that we had at that time really no experience providing capital to forcibly displaced persons. And as investors, when entering a new market, we first need to assess whether a sufficient business case exists. And so we conducted the firstly a market assessment study, whose finding revealed a conducive legal and policy environment for livelihoods and microfinance in Uganda, as well as a high demand for credit business by the refugees populations.
Mm-hmm. So what is the profile of refugee entrepreneurs that emerged from the study?
Yeah, from the study, we saw that the majority of refugees live in places resembling rural villages known as settlements, where people have freedom of movement and right to work and coexist with host communities, which is something quite particular in Uganda, in fact, which is not the case in other countries as well. Most refugees work in trading and agriculture, and self-employment is their main source of income. In the study, we found that 78% of refugees interviewed had plans to start or develop their own businesses. And from a gender perspective, we found that 1 every 3 women was or wanted to be an entrepreneur. However, their income is very low, and the money they manage is really usually borrowed from really informal channels, and it's usually insufficient to invest in their business. Many of them wanted to get access to formal credit, but at the time of the study, there was no presence of any microfinance institution in their settlement.
Mm-hmm. But now there is. So, Mercy, yes, how did the engagement of Vision Fund Uganda with the refugees start?
Providing refugees and host communities with access to credit and other financial services is in line with our mission to support and lend to vulnerable people, as well as a specific target of sustainably impacting over 300,000 children by 2024 in the vulnerable and rural communities in Uganda. And from a business perspective, this market also presents a huge opportunity for us as an institution to grow our business. And so after being approached by Grameen, Credit Agricole Foundation and UNHCR, and after seeing the results of the market study that Philippe mentioned, we conducted an assessment of the financial capacity of savings groups situated in the West Nile region of Uganda to determine the viability of providing financial services to host and the refugee communities. And the findings showed that despite the many challenges faced, these communities had enough financial capability to access formal financial services to boost their livelihoods and income of their families. And therefore, we decided to pilot test our products with the refugees and the host communities.
Great. So it seems that the business case was there for both of you. Hence, what was the role of the blended finance scheme to help kickstart your operations?
Well, after the study, there was, I would say, a general buy-in from the 3 MFIs that we had identified as partners in exploring credit offerings. We wanted to work with diversified MFIs in different places in Uganda. However, there were still some perceived risks that had to be mitigated, as well as startup costs of setting up branches and deploying digital channels in those new areas for these partners. And furthermore, the assessment had revealed also the need of providing business training and financial literacy to some of the target population, meaning the refugees in the host community. And so the joint program with SIDA and the UNHCR really provided these incentives needed to start the program.
Mm-hmm. And what were exactly these incentives?
Well, in fact, the way the program has been designed is that they have 3 components that are aiming to reduce risk and cost for both the lender and the microfinance institutions we are working with. The first is on the lender side, that we have a lender's guarantee provided by SIDA to the foundation to cover, in case of losses, up to 50% of the funds we provide to the selected microfinance institution. And so we usually provide debt funding to this institution so that they can re-lend to their refugees. The second is the loan at commercial rates that we provide, as I explained it to you. And the third is technical assistance funded by SIDA to help the MFI set up branches in the settlements, hire, train staff, develop marketing tools, but also a very important component to provide non-financial services like financial literacy, business mentoring to the refugees and host communities.
Great. Mercy, so contrary to the risk perception that financial service providers have, repayment rates of your institutions are showing that refugees are actually as creditworthy as nationals, and this also despite the COVID pandemic. Is that right?
Lenders indeed tend to consider refugees as a risky clientele, and this is due to inadequate collateral, insufficient capital for their businesses, lack of credit history, know your customer requirements, and language barriers, which is the reason as to why they are considered an underserved segment. However, our experience serving this segment shows that refugees are creditworthy, bankable, they're also dependable, notwithstanding the limitations just mentioned. And this is evidenced by the remarkable repayment rate of 95% of over 17,000 clients from both host and refugee communities we currently serve. And when the COVID pandemic hit Uganda, Vision Fund staff became concerned that the South Sudanese refugee clients would experience significant difficulties maintaining their livelihoods during and after the severe lockdown. But for the refugees, when a livelihood or a business is compromised, it can be very, very difficult to recover, given their limited ability to access services and markets. However, they demonstrated an astonishing resilience and capacity to meet their loan repayments. And this happened because we work with well-established saving groups where we see solidarity between members that we don't necessarily see in other less established groups. And also members are supporting each other. They're able to help more vulnerable members to stay engaged in the financial and the savings process.
Yeah. And so what are some strategies that you have learned to help to reduce your credit risk that you mentioned before?
Currently, we work with 700 savings groups from both host and refugee communities. And savings groups, an amazing proven solution to help the rural poor. So one of the things, or one of the strategies we employed was to recruit staff locally. And that was an important step to address the challenge of the language barrier, and as well help to build trust among the targeted clientele. Additionally, during the pandemic, Vision Fund staff are being recruited from the local community. They were not subjected to movement restrictions, and hence they could make sure that they visited the clients in a socially distanced manner as frequently as possible to check in on their livelihoods and the overall well-being of the clients. And also digitizing savings groups helped us access clients' data for credit appraisal and loan decision-making, while improving operational efficiency, loan turnaround time, and monitoring. In fact, Vision Fund Uganda also offers financial literacy training, which is compulsory for all members before getting a loan. This is critical to equip refugees with basic financial knowledge, such as record keeping, financial management, and as well entrenching a culture of savings.
Okay, it's interesting. So let's go back for a moment to the program setup. Considered all you have mentioned, both of you, about the creditworthiness of refugees, are then the de-risking mechanisms needed to invest in micro-entrepreneurs living in displacement settings? Philippe, what do you think?
Well, thank you for the question, because I'm a strong advocate to see that. I mean, it's very positive, and usually it's not that risky to work with refugees. I would say that I would say make the equation that de-risking mechanisms are really necessarily needed for refugee related investments all the time. I think it depends a lot on the context, as well on the socioeconomic profile of the target population you want to serve. It's true that guarantee, I mean, first loss capital or other similar mechanisms are useful to unlock additional private capital in unknown markets. But what I think is that it's very crucial that access to data and insight into refugees' livelihoods, the economic participation in the host country, the conduciveness of the environment, and the potential for investment and scale are key to make the decision of what you need to properly operate. In fact, at the beginning, we didn't know the market and its potential. So the guarantee was for us at the foundation a clear incentive. Even if we're very much willing to support this new type of clientele as it's part of our social mission, as mentioned before. So far, data in Uganda is very encouraging, as Mercy mentioned, with refugees proving to be credit worthy as national clients. I strongly believe, and the experience proves it, that refugees are not riskier, and serving them should be done like any other type of clients. You don't need to have a specific product or services. You just need to adapt what you have to the context, and then you will have a very successful result.
That is right. And I think, Philippe, what you are mentioning really resonates also with experience we have observed in other contexts with other financial service providers. So thank you for that. Mercy, final question to you. If you had to give some tips to financial service providers new to the refugee market and interested in including displaced communities in their product offer, so what would you tell them?
I should say that taking a bold step to support refugees has provided us all with unique opportunities to understand new frontiers for provision of financial inclusion. And first, conducting a feasibility study was critical for us in understanding this segment and ensuring alignment to the respective organizational strategy while mitigating the underlying risks. And this enables identification of the right partners, the market segments, key enablers, and how to overcome obstacles to achieving their strategic intent. And also, institutions must be deliberate in investing in building employee capabilities at all levels to adequately prepare the staff to serve the underserved client segments. There's great need for advocacy, building synergies with different partners to enable more financial service providers venture into this space to increase access to financial services. And at this point in time, I would like to give a special appreciation to all our partners that have supported us walking this journey with Trade in West Nile of Uganda. Thank you.
And thank you very much indeed to our speakers. To conclude, we heard some important lessons about the demand for credit by refugee micro entrepreneurs, as well as the business case for both an investor and the microfinance institution to address this demand. Our speakers mentioned some of the barriers to entry for lenders that are relevant to displacement settings. For example, the limited information about the demand and the supply of financial services, the conduciveness of the market conditions, as well as startup cost. But there might also be others associated with logistics or technology, for example, and it may not be possible to address all the barriers with one financing solution. And in the case of this program, a mix of finance mechanisms, we heard a lender's guarantee, debt funding from an investor, and the technical assistance to support both the MFIs and the refugee entrepreneurs was needed. While every context is different, the approach we presented can actually be replicated and adapted to other displacement settings where market conditions exist, even if they might not be as conducive as the one in Uganda. But that's precisely what a blend of public and private finance mechanisms should be there for, to address the specific restrictions, market failures, economic, social challenges that we find in humanitarian and more fragile settings. And by doing so, we can support, demonstrate the commercial viability of investing in refugee entrepreneurs and the communities that host them.
This wraps up this episode of the Fragility Forum podcast series. Thank you for listening. Learn more about the World Bank Group efforts in environments affected by fragility, conflict, and violence by visiting our website www.worldbank.org/FCV. Until next time, bye!